Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
I reviewed an entire lengthy speech given just a couple days ago by Erin O'Toole, the fairly new leader of the Conservative Party, new leader of the opposition. I'm hopeful for him. I'm hopeful that it'll be more conservative and more feisty than the footnote in history he just replaced old, what's his name, the guy with the dimples who kept putting his family members on the payroll. Anyways, I found a recent speech that O'Toole gave on Monday, I think it was, and I'd like to share it with you in some length, some excerpts. So this is the state of the art of his thinking since it's just 2 days old. Here, let's start off this way.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance has proven their government has no plan. Without a plan for vaccines, there can be no long-term plan for our economy. Without rapid testing in wide distribution, we've missed out on a critical medium-term tool, Mr. Speaker. And the Minister of Finance in her speech seems to realize that she's putting the economy on hold. She'll say, we'll rebuild the economy once COVID is beaten. Well, Mr. Speaker, rapid tests could help preserve the economy, and the vaccine will help us beat it. This government is late and has no plan for both. That's right. Canadians should see that off the start. This year has been a very difficult year for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We all know that. 2020 will be remembered as the year a global pandemic came to our shores and took this government completely by surprise, despite many departments warning them for months. It will be remembered as a year of foreclosures, rising unemployment and uncertainty. Worse, for 12,000 Canadian families, it will be remembered as a year of grief and tragedy.
I agree it's a tragedy that 12,000 people have died from the virus. That's slightly higher than the normal death toll for the annual flu. It's typically, 7, 8, 9,000 deaths. So this is worse, and every life is precious. And now that we've all said that, let's talk about how the opposition leader is opposing. At least in that clip, his big beef is that there hasn't been lots of rapid testing for the virus. Is that really the problem? Not enough testing. Now, when you test healthy populations, especially when you set the actual test to be extremely sensitive, which is being done, you know that half or more of the results are false positives, right? Here's the Deputy Public Health Officer of Ontario saying exactly that.
And in fact, if you're testing in a population that doesn't have very much COVID, you'll get false positives almost half the time.
Rapid tests and a vaccine? Maybe it'll be here in a few months, and I'm absolutely sure that Justin Trudeau has botched whatever he's done with vaccines. He actually signed a bizarre contract with a Chinese military company a few months back to get in on the ground floor of their vaccine. He's so dumb, that Trudeau. But look, my thesis, and I think the facts bear it out, is that the big problem now is not the virus, actually. It's the government response to the virus, the lockdowns, the quarantines of healthy people, the travel bans, the fear-mongering, shutting down hospitals for regular operations, thus delaying countless small examinations and surgeries and tests, leading to so many more casualties than the virus itself. I agree with O'Toole that Trudeau was sleeping at the switch. I agree we're in a pickle, but what is the opposition leader's opposition today? All right, let's listen to find out. I'm going to let this run for a couple minutes. Take a look.
Canadians have shown courage and fortitude. They've respected directives from our health authorities. But Canadians are hurting. Canadians want their lives back. And this fall economic statement shows that they cannot rely on the Liberal government to get their lives back. Canadians are not difficult people, Mr. Speaker. They have complied, followed rules. They've tightened their belts. They're reassuring their worried children and taking care of aged parents. And to this effect, I'm really glad the Liberal government and the minister took my proposal from this spring on support for parents by boosting the Canada Child Benefit. There it was on page 10 of my leadership platform, Mr. Speaker, and I'm so glad the Liberal cabinet was reading it just as hundreds of thousands of Conservative members were.
Hear, hear.
Yes, I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, because this was a concrete proposal to help families, especially moms, working moms, juggling it all, helping families through the toughest time in our modern history. But we know that Canadians need more. As I said, Canadians want their lives back, Mr. Speaker, and they've only asked one thing from this government, one simple thing. What is the plan, Mr. Speaker? For widespread use of rapid tests, what is the plan for rolling out the vaccine? When does it arrive? Who gets it first? Do we have the freezers for the -70 vaccine, Mr. Speaker? A robust portfolio in 2023 doesn't help us as we enter 2021. Well, Mr. Speaker, this fall economic statement answers the question on whether there is a plan. And it answers that no, there is not. And as the red ink on our balance sheet turns a dark crimson, we're facing a $399 billion deficit, Mr. Speaker, not $400 billion.
No.
It's a bit like 1999. You're not spending $20, Mr. Speaker. It's only $399 billion, Mr. Speaker. And Canadians know that not even half of that went to the emergency programs.
Okay, good points about overspending. Excellent. Good point about wastefulness, about debt. I get it. I'm with you. That's important stuff. Good. And questions about the vaccine, fair enough. But is there a more philosophical opposition to the government's approach? Let's listen some more.
If this government spent half as much time meeting with real Canadians, small business owners, than they spend on photo ops, they would know that workers, small business owners, are asking for clarity. Canadians in a pandemic aren't asking them to ban single-use plastics. They're asking for details on when the vaccine gets here, how it's being distributed, how it's being preserved at -70. How can they save their aging parents from a senior's home or a hospital bed? This Prime Minister needs to get his priorities straight. But it's hard to take this government seriously when we know how this all started, Mr. Speaker. Think about how much better off Canada would have been if the Liberals had not shut down the pandemic early warning system. They did that in 2019, Mr. Speaker, without any consultation with scientists or with opposition parties in Parliament.
I don't disagree with any of this. The government is childish and silly, plastic bag bans, things like that. I agree with shutting down the warning system was stupid, all the botched responses, I get it. But that was the story 6 months ago, right? Is there anything more now than Monday morning quarterbacking about the past? As in, other than simply promising to be more competent, and hopefully he would be, what would Erin O'Toole actually do differently? Is he a lockdown man? Is he more laissez-faire? Is he worried about civil liberties? Does he really believe that this is on par with the Black Plague and we have to shut everything down? Or is it overblown and simply being used as an excuse to build bigger government? That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.